Hello again. Hey, we're going to continue, using these shapes to draw our sculpture. And with this drawing lesson, I'm going to particularly talk about the Alebrijes. And I'm sorry about my Spanish accent. It's just not there, but we're going to keep going for it. You have to do some research. Remember, this kind of creature, we're going to connect two animals together or two or more animals together and also add another feature out of our imagination. So what I thought about, and I did my little Google image search, and you won't have to, if you're at home, you won't have to print these out, but you will have to have them and submit them to me. So I thought of, how about doing a lizard or a chameleon and a cat, okay, and letting them blend together somehow. So I have my different variety of chameleons to kind of refer to, and a couple of cats laying down, and there's another one. If you want to get stuff like this, what you have to do is look up clip art, and then whatever you're looking for. So clip art turtle, clip art fish, clip art dinosaur. Otherwise, you get a lot of photographs that are more difficult to draw from. So these kind of images are really good to use when we're starting to build our animal, or our alebrijes, our fictional animal. And remember, you're going to kind of give it a name. So we'll talk about that too. All right, so here we go. We're going to have this off to the side right here. And we're going to find these shapes inside these animals. Okay? And we're going to do a technique called drawing whole to parts. Okay, we're going to draw the simple shapes first, and then we're going to add the details. Excuse me. Now, one thing we're going to sculpt these animals on, we're going to call this a mound. And one thing we're going to do first is we're going to make the mound. And your drawings need to be good size, like at least as big as your hand. Think of it that way, the whole drawing. So a mound is going to be just a slight curve, and then a slight bump on the top. Well, I'll show you how to make that out of clay. Okay, but we're going to build our sculpture on top of that mound, because sometimes you have things that are kind of fragile and they cannot stick out too far, which we'll talk about as you construct and as you design. So I'm going to kind of think about how I might want to start to draw some of these basic shapes, seeing these shapes. So if I took that oval and I turned it, I could think of the body of a lizard, of that chameleon, as kind of like being an oval. But maybe the top is a little bit more arced than the bottom. So I can just draw that first. And again, I'm going to draw kind of lightly. Hopefully you can see it. I think you can. And you want to start to draw this on your design below the top of your dome. We're going to wind up erasing that, because you want it to look like it's sitting on the dome. And that, you can see how that already kind of has that feel. So there's kind of a flat line, and I noticed on my lizard, on my chameleon, that one, this one too, is kind of arced more, and I'm not doing any detail. See, it's kind of an arc more. I notice that his head is kind of like a triangle. Okay, kind of like but it's not a perfectly equal triangle. It's a little bit more slanted here than it is here. I'm going to think of this headdress thing as a separate item. Okay, we can kind of break it up into shapes. Again, I'm going to make this triangle come back in here farther to make it look like it's connected to the body. And again, this had more of an angle coming down, and this was more of a flat angle. And it didn't come all the way out to a point, so I'm just going to kind of chop it off right there. Now start to picture that. Look at that. That's already starting to kind of have the feel of that lizard. Okay? Let's see. Now I can think about that thing. What is that? It's kind of like an oval, a half oval that's kind of leaning. Right? There's one over here too that has kind of a swoop to it. Right? So, and I can have to see where it attaches. So it attaches from the back of the head, and it winds up going about to the middle of the head over here. So if I thought of this just as an oval very lightly, okay, then I can start to just draw the top half of it. Again, that's not done yet. I'll make some adjustments to it. His eye, either this one, or kind of trying to copy whatever one you want. I'm going to make the back half look like more of a cat, and the front half look like this lizard. So if I wanted to just think about where that eye is, to me, it's right down below where the edge of that headdress is. Here it's a little different, so it's not going to matter that much where exactly you put it. For this, we're not worried about this looking exactly like the lizard that we see here. So I'm just going to kind of estimate and put it right about there. Okay, don't worry about details yet. Notice there's no details. Okay, now let's think about the back of a cat. Okay, and I have this one facing the other direction, but that doesn't matter because I can just think of a shape. I can think, there's the back of that hip. A lot of animals and mammals have that hip right there first. Look at that, I'm just drawing right on top of it. That's basically an oval. I could think of it more of a circle. This one's a little different. It's kind of if I drew that whole thing, it's kind of an oval shape. Don't worry about the little details yet. So I'm going to make kind of a circular oval shape here and see if it's placed about right and see if it kind of looks like it's the right size, and I'm going to say it is. Another thing we have here is the foot. To me, that's a long, flat oval. This one's a little bit squattier. This one almost has kind of a triangle. See that kind of triangle I'm drawing right there? And how it kind of bumps into the oval? That's how I can think of that one. I kind of like, I'm going to, well, let's see. There's my triangle. Okay, that's all you need for now. Okay, for the foot. I'm going to make a tail, not a lizard tail, but more of a cat's tail. Now here's one thing you have to think about, you guys. You cannot make a tail. You could draw it, but you cannot make it out of clay. You can't make a tail kind of go up there. That, when it gets dry, it'll break off instantly. It's just, you cannot do that kind of a thing. You could not make a horn that sticks way up like that. Okay? So you just can't do those little tiny fragile things. Don't even think about designing them. So if you do have something that's a little fragile, what you need to do is make contact here with on the tail, at least make contact, and it either has to come back around and make contact again on the body, so it will literally be attached. Okay, so I'm just going to make that tail, and it's basically a long oval, right? It's just a long oval that I bent. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll draw one single line first to see where it's going to go, and then kind of draw the lines around it. If I wanted to, I could have let that tail come down here and land on the mound that we're making. Okay, that's totally fine too. All right, so we can kind of start to see this happening. I'm going to make him look a little skinnier in the belly. So I'm going to bring this line. Now I'm starting to think of a few kind of details. So I kind of gave more of a chest right there. Now also we can start to, and I'll still make the front leg here, we can start to erase some things. Okay, and I'll show you a couple of tricks on how to get some parts to look like they are a little bit more natural. Okay, so right here we have this back side of the triangle. Watch what happens when I erase that. It's going to make it just appear that that head is connected to the body. Okay, same thing here. When I erase that line that was here, this makes it look like that that headdress thing was connected to the body. And all right, now let's do a leg here. These legs on this lizard are kind of long and skinny, so they really have to connect at the body, and they have to connect on the dome. But some people, I'm going to do this as well. I'm going to make it look like this lizard is crawling across a log or a stick or something. Okay, there's a stick right there. Imagine it kind of half of a stick. And again, you can think of this as there's a circle. This is just kind of a couple of wiggly lines to show a kind of a broken stick going that's going to attach to the mound that we're going to make. Now I'm going to make one line first to kind of just suggest where that leg might go. Okay, there's the elbow, that's where it's going to attach, and this is kind of the shoulder. I kind of copied this one. Okay, now it can't be super skinny. If you thought of it as the thickness of a pencil, that's about as skinny as you want to get when you're actually creating this in clay, but we'll get to that later too. Now I can just think of the front part of the leg kind of as an oval, the bottom part of the leg as another oval, kind of just build it in parts. These lizards, and again you can make it different than this, have two little toes. I'm going to try to make these toes look like they wrap around, see that round around the log. I'm going to give it a toe. I'm going to let it just blend into the wrist, I guess. This one's going to disappear behind that log, so it looks like it's kind of hanging onto it like that. Now I'm going to start doing some details. So look at that. It's that simple, just drawing these shapes. Ovals and a lot of ovals actually, and cylinders and triangles and things like that. All right, so now I'm going to start to really look at the shape of the lizard's headdress, and I'm going to make it even go here a little more, and I'm going to let it stick up a little bit. And then you can start to get rid of things. The eye, these lizards' eyes kind of stick out as if it were a cone, but when it's coming straight at you, it's hard to tell. So I'm going to just draw that circle and then make a little black dot here for where the eye looks like it's sticking out. I'm going to just draw a couple of little lines right here to make it look like those little wrinkles in the eye that I see. Now I'm not going to worry about texture. The tiniest little texture, I'm not going to worry about that at all. But we have a mouth. A mouth isn't as hard as you think. This mouth goes down pretty far. The lower jaw is kind of skinny. Here too, the lower jaw is kind of skinny. And I see this mouth kind of a line, and it kind of has a crooked little end right there. So I'm going to round off the nose. I'm going to round off the lower jaw, and check this out. I'm just going to go whoop. And again, that could be straight. I'm going to get the lower jaw. It looks like it has a little extra piece down here, so I'm going to draw a little bump right there. And looks like he has a nostril. Looks like he has a little bump in his head right there. And again, this is a kind of a pretend creature. So all the parts don't have to be the exact same as your photograph, but it really helps to have a reference. I mean, look how alive this guy is becoming. All right, let's see. So now we can start to erase some of the parts that overlap each other. So that kind of becomes a leg. Now watch what happens right when I erase the front part of that shoulder. It makes it look like it's connected right to the body right there. Now here's a little trick. If you kind of do that with your hand, and you see these little wrinkles right here, they kind of go out in a Y shape. So if you did this little curve here and made a little Y shape right there, you could even do one right here. I'm going to move it back a little bit. Do a little one this way and a little one that way. See, that gives it that kind of that natural little feel that the flesh is kind of folding as it kind of comes out of the body. Same thing here. If you bend your own elbow, sometimes there's that little Y shape, that little fleshy wrinkle. And I'm going to make this wrist get a little bit narrower. I'm going to let that elbow just work its way around. I need to erase the log right there. And I can erase the bottom there. So check this out. That's looking pretty cool so far if you just had the front of it. Now back here, we're going to start to erase the back through the tail. Just kind of refine the line. You can let that just connect to the tail. The same kind of thing can happen right about here with that little Y. See that little Y shape right there? And we can do the same thing right here. Wherever there's kind of a squish of flesh, we can do that little Y shape. Let's see, let's let this go in front, and I'll just let the tail connect right there. But we have one more little layer of details to do. That's if, whoops, I forgot the toes. Now these toes don't have to be perfect cat toes. So I'm going to make 3 toes. I'm going to just do the front one here. I always do the front one first. And again, there's that triangle we can follow. There's one there that kind of overlaps, and there's one there that kind of will just disappear, and that's close enough. Now, just so you know, the belly of your animal, or if he's seated, will attach to this mound that we make. Okay, it's not literally like sitting up. It's not literally sitting up. It's going to be attached to that mound that you build on top of. And one of the requirements that I'm going to do is that you do some carving on this mound. So I might carve a little dirt patch. It's called relief sculpting. So if I make a little line right there, that's going to indicate, and it's going to kind of look like this. Check this out. I'm going to drop this line down a little bit. So see how it looks like it's sticking up? This could be a leaf that it's sitting on. I'm going to really encourage people to try to use at least one element on the mound that your creature can interact with. So I might have another log over on the other side, but not necessarily have to. Now we can start to, again, I'm going to let the back half try to look kind of furry. So I'm just going to add some of these details. Just these ziggly lines that look like it might be a little furry. Same thing here. I'm going to erase a little bit and just add little fur markings along the back of a lizard to me. And again, we can make this up now. Let's see. Let's do this here too. Let's get that little fleshy fold thing right there too. And I might carve in a little bit of an indent in that headdress. I might make little dinosaur lumps that might fade away back here. Now, a chameleon a lot of times has stripes. So for now, at least, I'm going to create some of those stripes that might kind of just fade away. And there you go. That's all you have to do. Okay, now, I did have another one. I cheated. I made 2 of these. It looks a little different, but I did it in ink. I'm going to ask that once you draw this in pencil, get either a Sharpie or some kind of a ballpoint pen is perfectly fine, and do it in ink. It will photograph much better. Remember, you have to name it. So the mix of a cat and a chameleon, I'm calling a cateleon. I'm sorry, a cation, excuse me. Okay, I had other ideas about that. So you're going to have this drawing, and you're going to have your resources, and you're going to have this page to submit for your design. All right, hopefully that helps you a lot. And I know that was a long video, but sometimes it really helps people become more confident in how they can draw and how they can combine different things together. There you go.